I want to thank my staff and Representative Kiley's staff and everyone who is working so hard on this very important bipartisan effort. So earlier this year, I met with John and Jennifer Epstein in Oregon. They're Oregon parents who faced an unimaginable loss after their son Cal took what was supposed to be a pain pill and died from fentanyl poisoning. I think about their story a lot, and it led me to take action. Cal and his family were unaware of the danger of fake pills containing fentanyl, and they are not alone. And make no mistake, this is a preventable crisis. The nonprofit organization Song for Charlie, they're with us today, and you'll hear from them shortly. They found that only 36% of teens are aware that fentanyl is often used in fake pills. The Epsteins turned their grief into action and worked with the Beaverton School District, you'll also hear from them today, to develop the Fake and Fatal curriculum to spread awareness of this danger. The program is already saving lives. The Beaverton School District has not lost a student to fentanyl poisoning since Fake and Fatal started in April of 2021. And Kristen from the Beaverton School District will explain more about the program today. Recently, I hosted Secretary Becerra in Oregon. We had a roundtable conversation about this program, and we heard importantly from several students, and they talked about how this is making a difference in their lives. One student said her parents talked with her about fentanyl, but she didn't really know much about the specifics and didn't really understand the danger. But after going through the Fake and Fatal program in school, she's much more aware of the consequences, and she understands that fentanyl is odorless and colorless, and that an amount as small as the tip of a pencil can lead to a fatal overdose. Awareness curriculum like this should be available to students and families across the country. And I developed the Fentanyl Awareness for Children and Teens in Schools, or FACTS Act, because of these conversations that we had and because of the need for this education. So the legislation will encourage the development of partnerships to help replicate local education programs that have successfully curbed student deaths from synthetic opioid overdose. It will develop a federal interagency task force to fight the synthetic opioid crisis through education and prevention, and provide access to professional development for school personnel regarding synthetic opioid misuse and overdose. This is an important part because our educators are there every day talking with our students. And it will improve federal education and health data collection efforts, important as well, so we can better understand and highlight the effects of synthetic opioids on youth. The bottom line is this legislation will save lives. So I look forward to hearing from everyone who is joining us today. Thank you to Ed and Laura for your powerful advocacy after experiencing a tragic loss. I want to note that John and Jennifer are aware we're doing this. They're with us in spirit. They couldn't be with us today, but Kristen, thank you for the work you are doing in Beaverton schools right now. I'm going to turn it over to Representative Kiley. Thank you for partnering with me in this important effort. I'll turn it over to you, Representative.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, Representative Bonamici, for your partnership on this vital bipartisan measure that will save lives. The scale of the fentanyl crisis in this country is hard to fathom. Fentanyl has become the leading cause of death for Americans age 18 to 45, surpassing car accidents and suicide. Over 73,000 Americans died from fentanyl in the past year. Almost 6,000 of those were in California. That's about 200 deaths daily, one every 7 minutes. The tragedies befalling family after family in communities all across America, story after story of promising young lives cut short, must be a call to action for all of us. We need to put politics aside and act with urgency, using every tool at our disposal, finding common ground across party lines to stop every potential tragedy that we can and get this crisis under control. One very important tool is education and awareness. That's what this legislation is all about. It's the Fentanyl Awareness for Children and Teens in Schools Act. We know that the lethality of fentanyl is unlike any other drug, and the smallest of doses can be lethal. We know that many young people are lured into buying fake pills, often through social media, that dealers sometimes even deliver them straight to the victim's home. But many teens and families don't know these things, don't know the extent of the danger or how quickly it can arrive at their doorstep. Many Americans are not aware of the severity of this risk until it is too late. One person who has done as much as anyone to change that is Laura Didier, who I was honored to have as my guest at the State of the Union this year. Laura's son, Zach, was a senior at Whitney High School in Rockland, a standout student with no history of drug use, when from one pill, he tragically lost his life. Laura and Zach's father, Chris, had to go through the gut-wrenching experience of seeing him get letters in the mail accepting him to some of our nation's leading universities after he had passed away. Laura has turned her grief and Zach's story into a national call to action. Working with organizations like Song for Charlie, she's now reached countless students and schools to issue an urgent warning about the horror of fentanyl. Her work has undoubtedly saved lives. The goal of our bill is to scale up the impact that Laura is having, to enable proven education and awareness initiatives to be replicated, and to break down the silos that exist at the federal level to create a unified and action-oriented strategy. To share more about her family's story, I'd like to now introduce my friend, Laura Didier.
That was lovely, Kevin. Thank you. As you mentioned, I lost my son, Zach. He was only 17. It was in 2020, and there was no awareness at that time. This crisis was new to our community, and I was blindsided by the tragic and sudden and unexpected death of my son. I went to work quickly to educate myself, became connected with the Song for Charlie team, John and Jen Epstein of Oregon, and Ed and Mary Ternan in Southern California. And the mission of educating kids just really resonated with me, because I felt like if I'd had this knowledge, if I knew about this crisis and the counterfeit pill situation, if my son had known, he would still be here. He would be at UCLA. Or whatever school he ultimately decided on. But instead, he's buried in a cemetery. And tragically, there are too many parents like myself. There are parents all over our state of California here, all over our country, that are doing this work, that are going to schools and educating. And we all receive very positive feedback from students and parents alike, that this is needed, that this is necessary, and that it is making a difference. I'm so grateful to both of our representatives here, Representative Kiley and Bonamici, for stepping across the aisle, joining your hands in this, rallying your colleagues to support this, because this crisis is multifaceted. It will require a lot of different approaches, but I would hope that one that we can all agree on is educating families and students and protecting them in that way. So I am here to support and champion this act with everything that I have. This is an emotional day. It's an emotional day in a really good way. So I thank you all very much for being here and supporting this work.
Laura, thank you so much for sharing your story and your son's story as well. I know it's not easy to keep talking about it, to keep thinking about it, but you're helping others and it means so much. My heart goes out to you. Now we're going to hear from Kristen Gustafson. Kristen is with the Beaverton School District. She's the Drug and Alcohol Intervention Program Educator. Kristen, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. This is a very important topic, and I too have teenagers, and my heart goes out to you parents. I want to talk a little bit about what we've done in Beaverton to give everyone an idea of what school districts, what we could possibly do across the U.S. to continue the education on such an important topic. So the Beaverton School District too was affected, as you heard, Jen Epstein and her son Cal in our district, along with a few other students. And we took the stand to react very quickly alongside the Epsteins to try to prevent this from other parents having to go through what they went through. And so we started by having a community conversation in our district, inviting parents and students and community members in to start the educational process. We created lessons with health experts and teachers in our district to present these lessons in advisory classes. So all students in 6th grade through 12th grade receive drug prevention lessons throughout the school year. We also are digging a little deeper in our health classes. We just recently updated our lessons, and here in the near future, we're going to be adding a lesson on for high school students how to recognize an overdose and how to react. Along with reacting, we passed a bill in Oregon to allow school districts to carry naloxone in all of the schools. Currently, Beaverton has it available in all of our secondary schools. We want kids to practice how to administer it, just like they do with, or we do with CPR. So that is coming down the pike. We partner with our local law enforcement and other community agencies such as Song for Charlie. Also with our department, our Oregon Department of Education, again, getting these lessons and getting this information out. In our lessons, we try to use a theoretical framework, and 2 of those areas is personalization of these lessons so that students perceive these situations, that they're relevant to their lives and that they could affect them, because sometimes, you know, as we know, teens think it won't happen to me. So that is in our lessons in the first and foremost. And then we combat it with skills, building skills in our students, resiliency skills, and advocating, teaching them to advocate also for their mental health as well, to help prevent some of these deaths.
Thank you so much, Kristen, for all the work that you're doing in Beaverton. I want to note my son graduated from Sunset High School, which is where Cal Epstein went to school, and just this is something we can do together that will save lives. It's such a hard thing, I know, to talk about, but so important that we're doing just that. And I'm going to turn it over now to Ed Ternan from Song for Charlie, the co-founder of Song for Charlie. And Ed, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your family's experience as well.
Thank you, Representative Bonamici, and thank you, Representative Kiley as well. There's, you know, for Laura and I, and for my wife Mary and I, and other affected families around the country, this bill is emotional, and it's kind of music to our ears, right? When we started doing this work a few years ago, we were all struck after losing our children that many kids around this country are at high risk of overdose, and many actually dying of fentanyl poisoning, essentially from a lack of information. And the country's at a stage now, I believe, where families are hearing about the fentanyl crisis and kids are hearing about it. And so awareness has gone up significantly in the last few years. And we're at a point now where we need to convert that awareness to knowledge. And that's a big part of what this bill does. I love the fact that it's collaborative. I love that part of it is bringing public health departments and education departments together to have these conversations in the classroom the right way. We're so much better now at knowing how we talk about drugs in a way that lands with young people, and we can make that happen through that partnership. So what's going on here, and the details of what this bill contains, the fact that there's data that's going to be gathered, hugely important so we can find out what's going on. But also, the other thing that's a model is how it's unfolded, right? So if you put it in context, you have the Epsteins lose a child, and they're shocked and surprised, and they don't know what's going on. They connect with other families like the Ternans and the Didier family. They do a little homework. They find out this is a trend, this is happening. They reach out to their school district, and Beaverton School District says, we can help, let's do something together. They build a curriculum for the classroom that includes education and training for the teachers who will deliver it and community events. And then they give Song for Charlie permission to use that curriculum all across the country in a very collaborative way. And then the local representative Bonamici hears about the success of the Beaverton School District program, amplifies it nationally, reaches across the aisle, finds an ally in Representative Kiley, and brings this to the floor. We are here for this. This is what we need more of. This is what we stand for, is collaboration, bringing people together and working together to solve this national crisis. And it's emotional. It's really heartwarming to see the way this has come together and the way you guys have built this out. We wholeheartedly support it at Song for Charlie. Mary and I personally wholeheartedly support it, and we'll do whatever you want to help get this through. We think it's enormously important. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Ed, and thank you for the work Song for Charlie has done. I know it can't be easy to take grief and then turn it into something positive, but I just want you to know Representative Kiley and I are here to do everything we can, because we know that this will save lives, and we know how important it is. And we're going to take some questions now. I think the first question is from Jim Ferretti, I believe is with KXL. Jim? Is Jim with us?
I'm sorry, I have to press unmute. I apologize.
Okay. I know we should all be Zoom masters by now, but that's all right.
But we're not. I have two questions for you, Representative.
Sure.
First, and I'm going to ask this question as a frustrated parent of a brand new high school freshman myself. As if it's not hard enough to be that parent, now we have to worry about this. Why does it take an act of Congress to make sure our schools are helping educate our children about these dangers? And the second part is, what are you and other lawmakers doing to stop the other part of this crisis, the trafficking of these drugs?
Those are great questions. And thank you, Jim. On the first one, I wouldn't say it absolutely has to be done by an act of Congress, but I tell you, if we weren't doing this, it would take a heck of a lot longer. Because if you go from district to district across the country, Oregon has close to 200 school districts, probably more than that in California. If you go district to district, or even state by state, it's going to take longer. And in the meantime, lives could be lost. So when we highlight this at the federal level, and Representative Kiley and I are both on the Education Committee, we care about this deeply. If we have an opportunity to bring this curriculum, to bring this life-saving information in a way that sometimes people don't always think that doing something at the federal level is faster, but this will really amplify the message rather than doing it district by district, state by state. I know Oregon passed legislation and will hopefully be implementing, I think it's in the next school year in Oregon, but this is information that can help children students across the country. On the second question of what else are we doing? I'll tell you what I'm doing, and then maybe Representative Kiley would like to weigh in on what he's doing. In addition to working with our local law enforcement, I know Kristen mentioned that at the Beaverton and Washington County level. From the federal level, I'm working closely watching what's happening at the federal level with our efforts to address trafficking. We have in Oregon and Idaho a region it's called HIDTA, which is the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Administration. They are run through the Department of Justice, and we are keeping in constant touch with them as they are watching the trafficking primarily on the I-5 corridor up and down the West Coast. The DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration, we live in a world of acronyms. I always try to define them. The DEA also has a specific fentanyl group that is working hard. We've had a couple of major busts in the Portland area, in the Northwest area recently. One with a sniffer dog. So there's a lot that they're doing at the federal level to really stop the flow. That's going to be critical. I just visited with some firefighters recently, and almost 70% of their calls are health calls, and a lot of them are fentanyl. So we've got to stop the flow. But in the meantime, we also need to get this education out, because there are way too many instances where students are taking something like Cal thought he was taking a pain pill, and it turns out to be fentanyl, and the lives are lost. So, Representative, would you like to weigh in on what you?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you very much. And I would say that the role that we're envisioning here is really a supportive one. I mean, there are good things going on in a lot of different schools across the country and a lot of different communities. In my home county of Placer County, which is where Laura's from as well, the DA's office there has been amazing. They've been working with local schools. So there are good things going on. Our vision for this bill is to try to scale that up, and so that the capacity that some communities have demonstrated to raise awareness and to save lives can be brought to every community in the country. The reality is this is a national crisis, and we need a national strategy. Now, when it comes to the other question, I mean, I have advocated very strongly for action on other fronts when it comes to dealing with the situation at the border, when it comes for holding dealers accountable through our criminal laws, and I'm going to continue to do that. But we need a multi-pronged strategy. We need to use every tool at our disposal, and education and awareness is one very powerful tool. And so even if there are folks who might not agree with me on other prongs of the strategy, I'm going to try to build as much as consensus as I can, along with Representative Bonamici, on this very important element of that strategy to do as much good as we can.
I appreciate that. Now I see we have a question from Kara Arundel. Can either myself or Rep. Kiley, can you speak about what the responsibilities of schools will be? Are you there, Kara? Would you like to ask her question rather than have me read it? Kara?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. We can hear you.
Yes, excellent. Thank you so much for having this call. My question is, what will be the responsibility of schools under this bill, and what resources and funding would be available to help them meet this mission?
Well, what the schools will be doing is implementing the curriculum. And Beaverton, they don't have to reinvent the wheel. We already have the fake and fatal curriculum, ramping it up, and then there's some professional development for educators. And with regard to funding, as much as we can get, we'll be working with the Department of Education and the Department of Health and Human Services. And we're hopeful also, one of the pieces is helping schools and school-based health centers to get naloxone into their schools to save lives as well.
And, I'm a former high school teacher. And so, always having access to sort of the best available materials and training. This bill also covers professional development. Is a huge asset, especially in an area that might be unfamiliar to some educators, and where it may not be entirely clear what the right approach is. So this is sort of seeking to replicate best practices, as well as increasing our capacity to gather data specifically related to this crisis that can then be used by schools as well in crafting their own strategies.
May I add a little bit to that as well?
Please.
So I don't know if all people are aware in society, but the landscape of illegal drugs has changed significantly in the last 10 to 15 years. And so there needs to be an education. We need to catch up with that. And one is what is significantly changed for our youth today versus all of us right in the room who grew up with drug prevention education, is that we live in a prescription drug society now. We are inundated with prescription drug commercials all over the television and media. And so our students they perceive prescription drugs or these fake pills, they perceive them as being safe, right? Even if it's not, specifically prescribed to me or myself, right? They think it is safe. So again, the landscape has changed significantly. And as Representative Kiley just mentioned, right, best practices and some of the preventative measures that worked in the past, we need to up our game.
Absolutely. And I want to note that it used to be an overdose meant taking a lot of something. That's just not the case with fentanyl. We have a question from Megan with KATU. Megan? Is Megan from KATU with us? I'm not hearing from Megan, but we have a,
Hi, can you hear me?
oh, yes, now I can hear you.
Sorry, it took me a second to get that unmute permission. Yeah, I know you started to touch on this, Representative Bonamici, but I was just curious if you could speak a little bit more about what the rollout will look like and what kind of timeline can we expect for this?
Well, we introduced the bill today. We're continuing to recruit co-sponsors, and I had some great conversations today with colleagues on both sides of the aisle. We're hopeful that we'll get a robust list of bipartisan co-sponsors. I've already brought it to the attention of the chair of the committee. So I'm hopeful. The big unknown is whether the government's going to shut down, and we don't know if that's going to happen. I hope it doesn't, and I hope we can focus on doing what we're here to do, which is helping the people and representing the people in our districts. So the rollout is just beginning, and I'm confident because of the strong start and the strong bipartisan support that we'll be making progress. Looks like the next question is from Paula Peterson with the Tahoe Alliance for Safe Kids. Paula?
Hello, thank you.
Hi, Paula, we can hear you now.
So I am also media and a volunteer in South Lake Tahoe. So we started the Tahoe Alliance for Safe Kids after funding through the drug-free communities ended. And we're spearheading programs. So what you're talking about is great. And it's just like reaffirmation that we're doing the right thing. And, you know, we started in elementary schools this year with a curriculum called Soul Shot. And last year was a kindness program, just giving the kids tools young. So when they get to be in the middle school and high school, they have the coping skills. You know, I'm not an educator. I'm not anybody that's expert on drugs. I just care about doing the best for our community. And I love the curriculum. I'm excited for this program because it's been really hard to, you know, it's like us going against Goliath sometimes with getting funding. And so I got a link there. Rachel sent me a link for what's going on in school so we can see what the fake and fatal program is, because it sounds like a great program. Because we've shared the Song for Charlie story several times, and we just had challenge days for a week at the high school. So, you know, it's all a multi-front, multi-focused battle against fentanyl, and I'm glad to see this going forward. So it was more just, I just wanted to thank you. It wasn't really a direct question.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for what you're doing in your community. I think we have Peter Wong with us from Oregon. Peter, are you with us today? Might take just a minute to unmute.
Thank you.
Hello, Peter. Thanks for joining us.
I think Kristen Gustafson touched a little bit on this, but I gather the thrust of this bill kind of demonstrates that fentanyl isn't a problem limited to a particular economic or social class, or even a particular set of adults, that it's reaching in all areas of our society. Is that correct? As I said, Kristen did touch on this, seeing that
yes,
the scene today is a lot different than certainly when I went to school, which was like 8 years ago.
That's my understanding, and I'll let the others weigh in as well. But this knows no boundaries. Anybody else want to weigh in on that? Advocates or representatives?
I mean, that's
think-
absolutely. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, Congressman, excuse me, that's confirmed by the statistics that demographics are being hit in different ways. And in the more traditional victim group or mortality group of 25 to 50, the interesting thing is that African Americans are being disproportionately hit in that group, where previously they were not as affected by opioids. But when you look at the youth population, specifically, it's across the board. All economic, gender, and ethnic backgrounds are being hit really equally. And again, it's just a lack of useful information. They're dying from deceit, really. And that's the common denominator more than anything else. Sorry, go ahead.
No,
Right,
I
appreciate that.
I was saying, I was going to say better than I could, but I just want to say, that this does impact all ages, but what makes it particularly heart-wrenching is the toll that this crisis is taking on our young people, which is why this bill is specifically directed at schools. How can we increase education, awareness, and outreach within our school system? And, to the point that you just mentioned, like I said before, this is something affecting every community in this country. It is a national crisis. That's why we need a national strategy.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And then we have a question from Ben Botkin. Ben? Okay, Ben? I know it's taking a minute to unmute.
Yeah, I'm on now.
Hi.
Yeah, I was hoping you could maybe speak to just the big picture. Will different school districts be designing their own curriculum and have that flexibility? And number two, does the bill set any kind of like national federal standard for what the curriculum has to include and continue while also allowing flexibility?
Can you hear me? Yeah, there definitely is flexibility. Best practices will be shared, and with the information gathering in this legislation, that will help inform that. Of course, districts don't need to start from scratch because the fake and fatal program is already in existence. The curriculum is already working. But yes, there's flexibility. I think we at the federal level do not like to dictate specific curriculum, but we certainly would recommend and highlight if there's curriculum that exists. Of course, make it flexible to meet the needs of your community, but use the information and use what exists to start so that we know what's working, and we want the programs to be up as soon as possible to save lives.
That's right. And I think it's particularly important for smaller districts, for rural communities that don't necessarily have the resources that they might need to develop programs all on their own. We want to do whatever we can to help them out and to bring the most effective tools to their districts to help their communities.
Kristen, do you want to comment on the curriculum?
Yeah, so what you stated earlier, that we've made our curriculum accessible to anyone, and without any kind of copyright infringements. So like districts are allowed to make a copy and then take it and tweak it if they need. We are not dictating how they can use our curriculum. And that's the beauty of this, is that all of us, as Representative Bonamici said, the federal government doesn't tend to dictate education at this kind of level. It's up to the states. So there you have state standards. And so different states will be able to take the curriculum and change it to meet the needs of their diverse community, right? Each of our communities may be a little different, and so or a unique situation, and so they can take what's already been provided and kind of tailor it to make it their own if necessary.
Thank you, Kristen. We have Natalie from Oregon Public Broadcasting. Natalie?
Yeah, one of my questions was answered earlier, but I would love to hear from both of the parents we have on this call in terms of, what advice or words of encouragement could they offer to other families who are going through this and are kind of in the beginning stages.
And just to clarify, do you mean in grief or studying or teaching about this crisis?
I think I mean mostly about loss and grief, but especially for, we've heard from other parents on this call from who are asking questions that their students might be going into schools where this is more prominent now, like this is the first time they're having these conversations with their kids. So I guess kind of both phases, those conversations, what you would advocate for, but also the families who are going through loss.
Yeah, certainly. There is now, there tragically are a lot of us who have lost, either adolescent or young adult children. And we find each other. I would say it's a personal story to share. Some families are more comfortable being public and sharing their story. For me, it's been very therapeutic to share my story and to keep my son's memory, alive through that. There is a lot of support out there for families like us in grief. We certainly, at Song for Charlie, we become connected to a lot of families around the country doing incredible work, and we support each other, with the sharing of resources and advice, whether that's personal or through advocacy work. And then in terms of talking to your kids, before tragedy, hopefully, to avoid tragedy happening in your family, is just really having open conversations where it's not moralizing. It's just I love the name of the bill, just giving them the facts of what is going on, why this is different, why they need to be educated on this, why we all need to be educated on this. Because I do firmly believe that if my child, if Zach had understood that there were these counterfeit pills out there for him, he was told it was a Percocet pain pill. And it was not. There was no Percocet in that tablet at all. So I think that if we can make sure our students understand that we're here to support them in love and in empathy, to say, I'm sorry that you have to face this landscape. It's not fair. And we all want to be in this together to protect you, envelop you with knowledge, so you can make more informed choices that can keep you safe.
And thanks, Laura. That's also right on. And Natalie, thanks so much for the question. It gives me the opportunity to make kind of a shameless plug, but when it comes to this, I have no shame. We have just at Song for Charlie introduced a new online resource for families called the New Drug Talk, Connect to Protect. And it was actually funded by the state of California Department of Healthcare Services. And we're seeing other states have a high level of interest in coming up with something similar. And it's specifically to equip parents and caregivers to have this difficult conversation with their children at home. So through this bill, many schools around the country will be able to get this information to young people through the classroom door. And this portal brings it through the family room door. And that was our goal, because we know as parents begin to hear about this in the news, as I said earlier, awareness to me is knowing that something's going on. Knowledge is knowing what's going on. And so we built this portal because we understand that parents, they lack the confidence to bring this up with their kids because they don't understand about the new chemical drug landscape. And also, there's so many more tools in the toolkit now about how to do this with today's children. So you can find that online, the New Drug Talk, Connect to Protect, and newdrugtalk.org. And this resource hub will supplement what's going on with the schools and what these Congress members are trying to get scaled nationally as kind of a supplemental information for parents in the home.
That's an excellent idea, and I'm glad you did plug it, Ed, because there are many families for whom that will be really helpful. The bill's still critically important because we know not every family will have access or the opportunity or ability to do that, to educate their own child about this very, very serious issue. I believe, do we have any other questions? I believe we are at the end of our time, but I just want to thank everyone so much for joining us, especially Laura, Ed, for sharing your personal stories. Oftentimes when we talk about policy in the abstract, it's not meaningful, as meaningful as when it is a real story, and yours are really, and I know John and Jennifer as well, your stories are incredibly compelling and incredibly heartbreaking, but very, very important to tell. So thank you. Representative Kiley, do you want to make some closing remarks?
I would just echo those concluding remarks and thank everyone for taking the time to join us, and in particular to Ed and to Laura. Really, I told Laura before we started this that she's really the person that inspired me to work on this bill, because I've seen the impact that she, as one person, has had in sharing her story. And so, if we could multiply that impact just a little bit, we'll save a lot of lives, let alone if we can do so on a national scale. So our goal is to get this bill through the House, get it through the Senate, get it through the president's desk, and get it implemented as quickly as possible. And I'm really looking forward to working with Representative Bonamici to make that happen.
Likewise, thank you, Representative, and I'm grateful that you have your parents group, but we don't want it to get any bigger. So we're going to be doing all we can. It is a challenging time, but at the same time, what an opportunity to make a difference in saving lives. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for more.
Thank you.